January 16th, 1975. The cold North Dakota wind cut across Grand Forks Air Force Base. Inside a hangar sat an F-15 Eagle unlike any other. Stripped of paint, weapons, and nearly everything that wasn't essential to flight, the bare metal skin gleamed under fluorescent lights. On its vertical fin, Aquila Maxima, the greatest eagle. They called it the Streak Eagle. What you just saw was one file. The Cold War was fought in secrets like this. Cold War Black Files is where those stories resurface. Subscribe, new files declassified. This wasn't just another fighter jet. This was a weapon in a different kind of war. One fought not with missiles but with mathematics. One measured not in kills but in seconds. The target wasn't an enemy aircraft. It was Soviet prestige. 3 time-to-climb world records held by the MiG-25 Foxbat. For years, the Foxbat had haunted Western intelligence. Reports suggested it could fly faster and higher than anything America had. The mystique was real, and the records were untouchable. Until now. The story begins a decade earlier, in the skies over Vietnam. The F-4 Phantom, backbone of American air power, was dying at alarming rates. Kill ratios had collapsed from 10 to 1 in Korea to barely 1.5 to 1. The problem was doctrine. Military planners had convinced themselves that dogfights were dead. Missiles would kill from beyond visual range. Maneuverability didn't matter. Then American pilots met the MiG-17 and MiG-21. Small, nimble, built for turning. Suddenly, American fighters were forced into visual range, forced into knife fights, and they were outmatched. Pilots came home demanding something better. In 1967, Defense Secretary Robert McNamara departed, and the Soviet Union revealed the MiG-25 Foxbat. The combination terrified and liberated the Air Force. They could finally pursue what they'd wanted all along. A pure air superiority fighter designed for one purpose: to kill other fighters. They called it the FX program, Fighter Experimental. The requirements were revolutionary: thrust-to-weight ratio of at least 1 to 1, superior maneuverability, a built-in gun, long-range radar, speed of Mach 2.5. In December 1969, McDonnell Douglas won the contract. The F-15 Eagle was born. The design was radical: twin vertical stabilizers, large swept wings, twin Pratt & Whitney engines producing nearly 24,000 pounds of thrust each, a bubble canopy giving unprecedented visibility. But the real innovation was invisible. For the first time in American fighter design, the engines could produce more thrust than the aircraft weighed. It could accelerate while climbing vertically. The first F-15 prototype flew on July 27, 1972. The aircraft performed beyond expectations, but the Air Force wanted the world to know what they had. In April 1974, they awarded McDonnell Douglas $2.1 million. The mission: Project Streak Eagle. Take an early production F-15 and break every time-to-climb record in existence. Engineers selected aircraft number 72-0119. Between April and June 1974, they stripped it down. The radar, gone. The M61 Vulcan cannon and ammunition, gone. Missiles, pylons, tailhook, 1 generator, utility hydraulic systems, flap actuators, all gone. They even left the aircraft unpainted, saving 50 pounds. What total weight reduction? 1,800 pounds. The thrust-to-weight ratio, 1.4 to 1. For every pound the aircraft weighed, the engines could produce 1.4 pounds of thrust. They installed an explosive bolt system attached to steel cables. The Streak Eagle would be held down like a dragster while the pilot pushed the throttles to full afterburner. When the explosive bolt detonated, nearly 48,000 pounds of thrust would be unleashed. The flight profiles were brutal. Fuel loaded precisely for each record. The aircraft would sit on the runway, engines at full afterburner, restrained. When released, airborne in 3 seconds. Rotation after just 400 feet. Then an immediate pull into a near vertical climb. At certain altitudes, an Immelmann turn inverted. Acceleration past Mach 2 is another 60-degree climb until the target altitude. For the highest records, the pilot would have to shut down the engines. At altitudes above 80,000 feet, the air is too thin to cool them. They would overheat and destroy themselves. So the pilot would shut them down and coast. The aircraft would continue climbing on pure momentum, slowing to just 55 knots. A fighter jet at the edge of space, moving slower than a car on the highway. 3 pilots were selected. Major Roger Smith, calm, precise, over 5,000 hours of flight time. Major Willard Macfarlane, aggressive, confident, known for pushing limits. Major Dave Peterson, methodical, analytical, the kind who left nothing to chance. Grand Forks was chosen for its January weather. The North Dakota cold made the air dense, and denser air meant more oxygen for combustion, more power, maximum performance. On the morning of January 16, 1975, the temperature was near freezing, perfect. Major Roger Smith climbed into the cockpit. The Streak Eagle sat on the runway, engines spooling up. The sound was deafening. Smith released the explosive bolt. The cable snapped away. The Streak Eagle lunged forward, pinning Smith back in his seat. 3 seconds later, he rotated, 80 degrees, almost straight up. The acceleration was relentless, already supersonic. The shock wave trailing behind. Smith's vision tunneled from the G-forces. 5 Gs, 6. The flight suit squeezed his legs, forcing blood to his brain. 27.57 seconds after brake release, he passed 3,000 meters. The Soviet record, 34.5 seconds. Smith had beaten it by almost 7 seconds, a 20% improvement. That same afternoon, Major Willard Macfarlane broke 3 more records. 6,000 meters in 39 seconds, 9,000 meters in 49 seconds, 12,000 meters in 59 seconds. 3 records, 1 flight, all shattered by margins of 15 to 33%. Major Dave Peterson took the final flight of the day. Target, 15,000 meters, nearly 10 miles high. High enough that a pressure suit was mandatory. 1 minute and 17 seconds later, he passed 15,000 meters, beating the previous record by over 37 seconds. 5 records, 1 day, all destroyed. Over the next 2 weeks, they pushed higher. 20,000 meters, 25,000 meters, each climb more extreme than the last. On January 26, 1975, Major Dave Peterson suited up for the 25,000-meter attempt. 82,000 feet, well into the stratosphere. Full afterburner, near vertical climb. Immelmann inverted. Acceleration past Mach 2, another 60-degree climb, then engine shutdown. Peterson executed it perfectly. 2 minutes and 41 seconds after brake release, he coasted through 25,000 meters. The Streak Eagle continued higher, momentum carrying it upward even as it slowed. The engines were off, only the whistle of thin air over the airframe. 1 record remained, 30,000 meters, 98,000 feet, the edge of space. On February 1st, 1975, Major Roger Smith climbed into the cockpit one last time. This was the flight that would define everything. The final message to Moscow. Pressure suit sealed, the instruments checked, engines spooling. The Streak Eagle strained against the holdback cables. Smith released them. The acceleration was brutal, immediate, but Smith knew the rhythm, the timing, the exact moment to pull up. The Streak Eagle shot upward, 30,000 feet, 40,000. The air already thin enough that the engines were fighting for oxygen. Smith executed the Immelmann at 32,000 feet. He rolled upright and accelerated. Mach 1.5, Mach 2, Mach 2.2. The airframe shuddered. Then the final pull. 60 degrees, full afterburner. The engines screaming, burning fuel at an astonishing rate, still pushing the Streak Eagle higher. 80,000 feet, 90,000. The sky was growing dark. The curve of the Earth was visible. Smith's altimeter climbed past 100,000 feet. He shut down the engines. Silence. The Streak Eagle coasted upward on pure momentum. 3 minutes and 27.8 seconds after brake release, it passed through 30,000 meters. The record was his, but the aircraft kept climbing. 103,000 feet. The highest an F-15 has ever flown. Smith was no longer flying. He was floating. A glider at the edge of space, moving at just 55 knots. The air was so thin the control surfaces barely responded. Then gravity reasserted itself. The nose dropped. Smith pushed into a 55-degree dive. At 55,000 feet, he restarted the engines. They lit instantly. Smith landed at Grand Forks 14 minutes after takeoff. The Streak Eagle had set its 8th and final world record. In 17 days, the 3 pilots and 1 stripped-down F-15 had done what the Air Force had hoped for, and more. 8 world records. 3 had belonged to the Soviet MiG-25 Foxbat. 5 had been held by the F-4 Phantom. All now belonged to the F-15 Eagle. The margins were overwhelming. 20%, 30%. In one case, over 37 seconds. The Soviet Union noticed. The MiG-25 had been their symbol of air superiority. Now it had been humiliated. For $2.1 million, the United States Air Force had demonstrated to the world that American fighter technology had not just caught up. It had leaped ahead. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. A year later, in September 1976, Soviet pilot Viktor Belenko defected to Japan in his MiG-25 Foxbat. When American and Japanese engineers took the aircraft apart, they discovered the truth. The Foxbat was a fraud. Its airframe was built from heavy nickel steel, not titanium. Its avionics used vacuum tubes, technology considered outdated by Western standards. It could fly fast and high, but only in straight lines. It was fuel inefficient, with limited range. Its massive size made it unmaneuverable. It couldn't dogfight. It was designed to intercept high-altitude bombers, nothing more. The F-15, by contrast, was everything the Foxbat pretended to be. Low wing loading meant it could turn tightly. High thrust to weight meant it could accelerate in a climb. The bubble canopy gave pilots visibility Soviet fighters lacked, and the twin engines gave it reliability. In combat, the F-15 would prove itself beyond any doubt. 104 aerial victories, 0 losses in air-to-air combat. Israeli F-15S, Saudi F-15S, American F-15S. Every air force that flew the Eagle achieved the same result: dominance. Israeli pilots shot down Syrian MiGs by the dozens during the 1982 Lebanon War. American pilots shot down Iraqi fighters during Desert Storm. The F-15's combat record is unmatched in modern aviation history. The Streak Eagle never fired a shot. It didn't need to. Its mission was psychological warfare of the highest order. Every record shattered was a demonstration of capability, a warning, a message to Moscow that said, "We can build machines you cannot match." Today, the Streak Eagle rests in the National Museum of the United States Air Force at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Tail number 72-0119. The museum restored it to its original unpainted metal finish, the way it looked when it broke 8 world records in 17 days. On its vertical fin, the inscription still reads, "Aquila Maxima, the greatest eagle." The engineering secret wasn't exotic materials or classified technology. It was physics, understood and applied with absolute precision. Thrust-to-weight ratio, power-to-weight, energy management. The simple truth that if your engines can produce more force than gravity can pull, there's only one direction you can go: up. Faster than anyone thought possible. The Streak Eagle proved what the F-15 was capable of, and in doing so, it proved what American engineering was capable of. Not just keeping pace, not just matching the competition, leaving them behind.